Welcome to Let's Talk Liberty. I have to take a moment to share the broadcast, and I hope you will too. Thank you for joining us tonight. Where are you watching from? How is your week going? How is this wonderful Tuesday, February 23rd, going for you? It's going to take me a second. Hold on. Let me share this thing. Hope you enjoyed last night's broadcast. We kicked it off with an episode about Bitcoin. And as promised, we're going to follow up with an episode about more of a technological discussion about blockchain and why this stuff is going to radically change the world. And it's not just a speculative thing where it's not just like people are gambling and you know there's a lot of hype, but there's actually a revolutionary technology that greatly improves upon, it actually radically changes the way data is shared, accessed, and it's awesome. So we're going to talk about that today. Today's been kind of crazy for us, so I am hopefully this is going to go well. And I'd love to hear your questions as well, though. So I got some good feedback from the first broadcast, so thank you for sending that feedback. But if you guys have questions in particular, tomorrow we'll look at some altcoins, so that you won't want to miss that. Altcoins, it just means alternative coins, meaning not Bitcoin basically. Nowadays it means more like not Bitcoin and Ethereum, because Ethereum's also sort of one of the top coins that has gained enough traction to where it's become a regular. It's not an alternative anymore, apparently. But we'll look at some of the smaller ones, because some of the smaller projects, of course, is where you get a lot of explosive growth potential. And as you hear, the kids are not put to bed right now, so you probably can hear them screaming in the background. That's because we just got home. So my lovely, beautiful wife is actually putting them to bed right now. And joining me today is Matt Oakes, the solid, mighty Matt Oakes. And thank you for being a part of this, Matt. Go ahead and crack open your bubblies. I'm going grapefruit bubbly tonight. Hopefully you'll join me. Oh, glory. That's wonderful. All right, so we don't have a family update today, but you can go ahead and head over to the, yep, there it is. What is the blockchain? Now, as promised, Kyle, this is for you, but I know a lot of people are probably in the same boat, as am I, by the way. Yesterday I explained that I would consider myself more of an investor than a nerd, in the sense of I don't understand all of the the foundational technology is still sort of hard for me to grasp. I'm not wired in the same way, so I approach this space more from, of course, a prophetic standpoint, the biblical standpoint. That's the foundation. But then I also just see it as an investment opportunity. I think I have a good read on markets and knowing when demand is increasing for something, and understanding the economics behind a fixed supply asset with an increasing demand and what that means for its price. And so I typically put myself in the investor category. But today I'm going to do my best to help you understand enough, because I know a lot of people are like, I don't want to invest in something that I don't understand. And that sounds really responsible and good. It does. But explain to me how, solar panels work. Like, really explain it. And I think what you'll find is most of the obvious good ideas, you don't actually know the engineering behind it. You might know a little bit. You might have a cursory knowledge of like, oh, this is what's happening. It's taking sunlight and it's making energy. Yeah, but okay, like that's fine. But do you really know how it is? And I don't either, by the way. And my point in saying that is to demonstrate that it's actually fallacious. It's not wise to have to first figure something out completely before you can A, use it, or B, invest in it. Okay, so most people, again, last night I made the point, most people don't know how the internet works. And I'm not trying to pick on people. I'm saying it's complicated. And you don't have to know how the internet works to use it or to invest in internet-based companies. You can understand the value proposition, you can understand the conceptual side of it without actually having to know the technical or engineering side of it. That's fine. So today we're going to dip a little bit into the technical side, but mainly on a conceptual level, just so you kind of understand the value proposition, because that will help you kind of have that aha moment, like, oh, that's why this is good. Like these are some of the problems it solves, which I think is a lot more important. Of course, a lot of this is theory, so I guess it is imaginable that Bitcoin could, its value propositions, its promises, if you will, could end up failing and not holding true. But so far, that network has been tested for over 10 years, and it's held up. And so, in the world of programming, I suppose there could always be bugs, and a stated purpose or a intended goal doesn't necessarily mean it's going to accomplish that. But what's cool about developers is because this is open source and a lot of people are working on it, you have a ton of talent coming into the space to make sure that it's, in a sense, bulletproof. So, and of course, it has survived the test of time. And now, of course, there's tons of developers in the space. And, we sort of crossed a lot of those early, like, is this going to work? Those kind of questions have been resolved, or at least they've been satisfied to my liking. And you'll have to make up your mind about that kind of stuff. But today we will talk about what is the blockchain. And simply put, I'll just define it now. It is basically a shared spreadsheet. Okay? So imagine you and a few friends have like this boys or girls or youth club together, and you want to create your own little monetary and accounting system. Okay, I'm using a very crude example, but it will help understand what it is, because there's nothing like so deep about it. It's actually quite simple, but it's profound. It's effective. You want to create an internal system between you and your friends to track value. And in the beginning of the relationship, you each have 10 coins or 10 units of value. Call them whatever. 10 units. Okay, now, how could you create a system if you're going to be trading those units throughout the year? How could you create a system to keep track of who has which units? That's it. That's all blockchain is, okay? I want to demystify it a bit, because it's a shared ledger, and a ledger is just like a spreadsheet. It's just like a bunch of rows that has numbers. Matt has this many units. Lucas has this many units. David has this many units. Carl has this many units, so on and so forth. Now Matt trades to Carl 4 units. What happened? Well, Carl's ledger went up by 4 units if Matt gave 4 units to Carl, but Matt's ledger went down by 4 units. Okay, so that's all we're talking about here. It's nothing crazy. And the Bitcoin is the actual coin, or the unit in this case, right? And the blockchain is that shared ledger. And I'm gonna actually play a video that visualizes this. And it's a kind of slow video, but I think it's worth it. So bear with me. We'll get to that in a bit. Of course, as always, we're gonna start with some memes. I don't have a lot today though, because yesterday we went way over time. I just realized there's so much to talk about on this topic that we should at least allow for some more time. If you have, let me turn that off. If you have comments or questions, please shoot them out. This is a great time to get your questions answered. And if I don't know the answer, I'll just be honest with you, like, hey, I don't know that. Because again, a lot of this stuff, I'm still learning and wrapping my mind around all the different technical sides to this discussion. So I'm certainly not an expert in the blockchain space. Full disclosure. So let's get started. So we're going to get into some memes first. I think I only have a handful tonight, but they're funny. You ready? Go back to main content. Yeah. Okay, so this one I had to throw it on again because I think Kyle's watching now. Kyle, are you watching right now? And if you're not, this is in honor of you. The government can screenshot face. Gosh, that made me laugh so much last night. So it deserved round 2. It made it twice. Congratulations. Tim Hawkins, everybody. Next. One of these lions has security, free shelter, free food, and free medical care. The other lion has no assurances at all. Everything about his quality of life is his own responsibility. Be careful what you wish for. It's just a powerful picture. What lion do you want to be? The sad reality that I found out in 2020 is most people want to be the top lion, not even trying to hide it, not even ashamed of it, just like, yep, I don't even want freedom. Freedom kind of sucks. Just give me stuff. Just take care of my needs, make me feel safe. It makes me want to watch it makes me want to force everybody to watch Braveheart like 100 times until they get it. Freedom. Homeschooling, the radical idea that a family can raise and educate its own children without the government's help. I know that is absolutely crazy, totally inappropriate, negligent for sure. And yeah, anyway, who would do that? One of the most complex machines in human history, manufactured by hundreds of companies, can be repaired in your own garage. A flat road. Far too complicated for any one entity to attempt without the magic of government. Who would build the roads? It's so funny that no one ever stops to think about the complexity of roads versus the automobiles that are driving on top of it. And I've been thinking about this a lot recently, which I think is hilarious too. Google Maps and Apple Maps and Waze and all these like navigation apps, they have to adjust and become so good on the terribly designed government roads. And we as consumers, we are so used to government products sucking and just like we have no expectation for them to get better. We actually get frustrated at the app that didn't get the turn perfectly. And we're like, oh gosh, Google, I mean, come on. But if you think about it, Google's trying to solve an inefficiency with the actual road that was poorly designed in the first place. So, I don't know. I found that interesting. Benjamin Tucker writes, and I thought this was interesting as well, the anarchists never have claimed that liberty will bring perfection. They simply say that its results are vastly preferable to those that follow authority. I would change the wording of that sentence, but the idea is spot on. Us libertarians, we never claim that there'd be utopia. You know, that's one of the misconceptions. It's like, oh, you know, somebody can think of something that will go wrong in a stateless society. Well, who will do this? And how will this work? And what about this? And what if an angry mob comes and starts his own government? And it's as if they're comparing their utopia subconsciously. They create a world called government, ignoring reality, and in their created world, everything's perfect. And then they can find one problem in a stateless society and they think, open and shut case, Johnson. You see, that's why we can't have a stateless society, because I found one potential issue with a stateless society. But the point is, like, first of all, the government system that they're advocating for has a million problems already that already exist. So it's not like what they're comparing it to is perfect. It's not. It's terrible as is. So the point is, you know, we're not promising utopia at all. In fact, we're pretty straightforward. There's going to be issues because it's just, you know, part of the fall of man is sin crept in, and there are things like greed and corruption and lust of the flesh and pride and envy and all this bitterness and rage, all of these desires that were born out of the flesh. They're a real thing that we have to deal with in this world, and to the unredeemed person, especially the world system, it's just that's going to be everywhere. It's going to be rampant. So the question is, in a world like that, how do you minimize the damage between people, right? And the libertarian claims, which I think rightfully so, that what you need to do is, of course, don't make it legal and easy for the parasitical type to have an avenue to coercively extract funds from others. Just make that process more difficult, which is what a free society would do. Anyway.
Comments are talking
Yeah, you know, I can't see the comments. Let me see if I can see the comments here. Oh, here we go. Yep. So Ripple is an interesting coin. Actually, I just sold my Ripple, but I did have Ripple up until yesterday. Not against it. I actually invested in it because it was the banker's coin, and I figured might as well play both sides of the aisle. You know, like it's sort of the antithesis to Bitcoin. Like it is on the other side of the aisle. It's not for like, you know, freedom and the people's money, but it is like, hey, we're way more efficient. We can do a lot more transactions per second. We can reduce our carbon footprint, all those things, whatever, than the current banking system. And we sort of have an in with the bankers. But then the SEC came after them, and all of the U.S. exchanges stopped carrying Ripple. And so I had to actually how did I sell my Ripple? I had to send it to my Atomic wallet. It took me like 30 minutes to turn my Ripple into USDC, you know, USD stablecoin on the Ethereum blockchain, just to get my money back out of it, because I couldn't. And if you guys need help with that stuff, I can certainly walk you through that. So there's a bunch of tools. You don't need to go through exchanges to convert your coins. You don't need to go through exchanges to sell. There's ways around. There are ways around if you're willing to learn them, and they're not too difficult. So you can have things like Atomic Wallet that has a swap function built into it. That's, I believe, either it's using one of the decentralized exchanges like Uniswap or something like that. I'm not sure what engine that is powering it, Shapeshifter or something, but it bypasses the exchange, which means you are paying some high gas fees, but you can get your Ripple into USDC, for example, what I did yesterday. So small tangent, but not against Ripple. So basically, yeah, I'll talk about some, at the end of this broadcast, I'll talk about just sort of some investment, mindsets that I've adopted that have really done well for us. Okay, next. So this is interesting. 2020, this is how many dollars it takes to get 1 ounce of gold. Back in 1933, it was that much. And that was 1933, after they had already effectively doubled the money supply through fractional reserve banking and already ruined a ton of the value of the dollar. So before 1913, that picture would be hilarious. I think it was like a penny or something, like a nickel. Just for the record, I am the unvaccinated control group for this whole COVID study going on worldwide right now. I'm just trying to do my part. We're gonna have, trust the science. We gotta follow the science. You can't just have everybody, vaccinated. You gotta have a control group that is not vaccinated. So, we're just lining up to do our part, and we encourage you, to be a part of this control group, because let the science dictate how things go. Follow the science. Okay, what is the blockchain? So, some great questions coming in already, and we can keep looking at those if you have any more questions. But for now, we're gonna play a video, and full disclosure, it's a little long, so I'm gonna stay on the screen, and I might butt in, and I might have Matt speed up sections, because it might be kind of dry. It's like a 7-minute long video. But I wanted to, it is a building blocks video. There's a lot of these out there. It's not necessarily the best one. I don't think it's the best one. But it goes at a pace that's slow enough to where I think most of you will get like, oh, okay, that's what's happening. Okay, and after the video, we'll talk about it. And then we'll look at some definitions, just a few things. I want to highlight a few points that are really different, and when I say different, what I'm comparing is centralized, like the internet, how it's, I'll take a second to explain this difference, and then we'll go into the video. Okay, right now, if you make a credit card purchase through using your Visa card, how does that work? Okay, so you're at the store, you swipe the card, that information via the internet goes to a centralized server that Visa manages. Okay, so all transactions are coming through a central portal, and that's how consensus is reached, because you have one manager making sure everything's legit. Okay, so it's a pretty simple system. You just have one person managing, going, yep, that money goes out, yep, this money goes in, and they're basically the referee. It's a centralized system. Of course, some obvious problems with that is, what if one hacker hacks the server at Visa? They have access to crazy amounts of information, and they can do a lot of damage. So in a sense, if you're a computer hacker, you really like centralized systems, because you have to break into one place and you get a jackpot. Think about the Equifax breach recently. There's been a bunch of these in the last decade where a hacker breaks into one database and gets a lot of stuff. And that is one of the, it's a all your eggs in one basket sort of problem, where all the data is behind one firewall, and if a hacker can get through into that data, they hit the jackpot, right? So this is not the smartest way. This is just cybersecurity talking here. I'm not even talking about some of the other benefits, but just the cybersecurity side. It's not a very secure and safe model. Like Facebook, on Facebook servers, holds all of this information. And so if you're a hacker and you know where to go, if you're looking to hack, now it's still a big job. I'm not saying it's easy, but at least you know where to start doing your hacking. Okay, it is all stored in a central place basically on a computer. A server is just a big computer. Now, when you get really big, like Facebook and Google, you have entire buildings dedicated to servers. It's just racks and racks and racks of mega hard drives with information stored. You're right. You don't even have screens that necessarily act. You don't have. It's not like a computer, like you have a user interface and stuff. Again, I don't want to go too far off the beaten path here tonight, but that's. When we're going to compare blockchain, it's helpful to look at the current internet infrastructure and look at the pros and cons, right, or the advantages of blockchain over the current system. Well, one of them is decentralization. Okay, information is not all held in one spot where you can easily go and access it. It's decentralized over a network of validators, which what we're going to call nodes for now. And these are different computers on the network. They actually, most blockchains, they change over time. So it's like trying to if you're a hacker, it's like trying to hit a moving target where you don't even know where to start looking. So the security, where the data is stored, right? The security is so much more robust, because it creates a serious problem for any sort of hacker that would want to do damage to the network. At best, they hack one transaction. They're not getting into one transaction and then getting everybody's, right? They're not hacking, doing one hit job and then getting everybody's information. At best, theoretically, they're just getting one transaction's information. Whereas again, if you are a hacker and you breached Equifax, that one breach led to hundreds of millions of people information immediately. See, that's a huge benefit to blockchain. And I just realized that if I say every one of the benefits, we won't even get to the video. So I'll stop there, and then we'll wrap up with a few more of the notable advantages to blockchain. Go ahead and roll the video. Is it at the beginning?
Yeah, can we go full screen?
No, that's good.
Ever wonder if there's an easier way to complete transactions without having to deal with online wallets, banks, and third-party applications? Well, it's possible thanks to blockchain. Here's everything you need to know about blockchain. Imagine 4 friends, Jack, Ted, Sam, and Phil, meet up for dinner. After they're done, Jack pays the bill, and all of them decide to split the expense amongst each other. Now, on the next day, when Phil sends his share to Jack via online money transfer, the transaction goes through without a hitch. Then, Ted and Sam send their respective shares to Jack, but their transactions don't go through. The failed transaction cites some issues at the bank. That's when Jack comes to know about the many ways a bank transaction could fail. It could be due to technical issues at the bank. One of their accounts were hacked. daily transfer limits being exceeded, and sometimes additional charges, like transfer charges, associated with transferring money. To solve these problems, the concept of cryptocurrency came into existence. Cryptocurrencies are a form of digital or virtual currency that run on a technology known as blockchain. Thanks to blockchain, cryptocurrencies are immune to counterfeiting, don't require a central authority, and are protected by strong and complex encryption algorithms. And in a market of more than thousands of cryptocurrencies like Litecoin, Ethereum, Zcash, and so on, one reigns supreme: Bitcoin. Now, let's go back to our previous example and have Phil, Ted, and Sam send Jack.
Okay, hold on, we're gonna readjust the screen because it's a little bit off. So you go back to me full screen, and then I'll readjust it. It just sits. It looks like it's right. The thing is, you don't have to go full. Let's try that again and just hit play on the middle of that main content. It shouldn't be full screen. How was that sound, by the way? Was the audio okay, everybody? Did everybody tracking that? We're still sort of testing our audio. When we play videos through the slides, it's still a little wonky. So, yeah, there you go. Your presentation can be in full screen. But then, no, so you're hitting full screen on the video. Don't hit full screen on the video. Hit the full screen on the presentation. Just go into present mode. There you go. And then go to main content. No, back to main content. Let's try this again. So exit full screen of the video. There you go. And now go to present though, which is I think Control F5. Bear with us, we're testing something. It's a theory of mine. I could be wrong. Uncle Sam, who can take your money with a twinkle in their eye? Take it all away. There we go. Okay, perfect. No, you can start back where we were just at, so it's a little bit in. Yeah, because again, it's a long video, so bear with me. Yeah, that's good.
Blockchain. Cryptocurrencies are immune to counterfeiting, don't require a central authority, and are protected by strong and complex encryption algorithms. And in a market of more than thousands of cryptocurrencies like Litecoin, Ethereum, Zcash, and so on, one reigns supreme: Bitcoin. Now, let's go back to our previous example and have Phil, Ted, and Sam send Jack 2 Bitcoins each as their contribution to the previous night's dinner. Let's assume Phil, Ted, and Sam have 3 Bitcoins in reserve, while Jack has 5. First, Phil sends 2 Bitcoins to Jack. A record is created in the form of a block. The transaction details between them is permanently inscribed in this block. This record also holds the number of Bitcoins each of the friends own. So, after Phil's transaction, Jack has 7 Bitcoins, while Phil has 1. Following this, Sam and Ted send 2 Bitcoins to Jack. A new block is created for each of these transactions. These blocks hold the transaction details as well as how many Bitcoins Sam, Ted, and Jack have in reserve. These blocks are linked to each other, as each of them.
Okay, so the a blockchain, again, I'm trying to demystify this a bit. It's just a moving ledger over time, right? It's just a way to figure out who has what. That's all it is. And again, the genesis of Bitcoin, if you remember from yesterday's talk, was sort of a rebellion against the wicked monetary system we have in the United States. Why do I say it's wicked, by the way? I realize sometimes I've looked at this for so long, and some of you might be looking at this for the first time and never really even thought about it. And I'm not criticizing you. We all have our lanes, and sometimes we might see our lane really clearly. But it probably is good to take some time to just, why is it wicked? Well, let me say it like this. If for something to be moral and good, it has to be able to be universally applied. Okay, so like if punching is good, then no matter who you're punching in all situations across all time and all, it has to be universally applicable. If it's not, there's probably something off. So for example, the government can steal your money, but through taxation. Now, if you go next door and tax your neighbor, we all know that's wrong. But nothing changed. It's not good for some people and then bad for others. No, it's just bad all the time. It's never okay to coercively, by force, through the threat of violence, seize someone's resources. Or else I'm going to, hurt you. I'm going to put you in a cage. I'm going to lock you up. And if you resist, I'll kill you. Right? It's never okay to do that, no matter how many speeches you give, no matter how what nice suit you dress up with, no matter how many of your friends gather in one building, and whatever. It's just an immoral action. It can't be universally applied. In the same way, if I went down into my basement, which I don't have, but I kind of want a basement, but if I went down in my basement and started printing money, they would call that counterfeiting, and I would go to jail because it's clearly an immoral activity. Why? Because it is deception at its root. Let me ask you this. Why is counterfeiting wrong? Have you ever thought about that? The government does it every single day. I mean, not every day. I don't use too much exaggeration. They're doing it constantly. We talked about last night. They've printed 40% of US dollars that have ever been minted were made in the last 8 months. That's staggering. That's crazy amounts of counterfeiting. Why is it wrong for a private individual to do that same thing? Again, if I went downstairs and I had a super awesome laser printing machine and I figured out how to reverse engineer a dollar to where no one could tell the difference, and I went and started just making $100 bills, you all know that would be wrong. Not just illegal, but it would be wrong. There's something immoral about that. It's deception, it's fraud. Why can the government do it? Does it change shape? Does it become noble because they do it? No, of course not. That's not how morality works. Morality is fixed. It's born out of the nature of God, who is unchanging. He doesn't, sometimes this is okay and then other times it's not. No, if an action like that is just wrong. It's just straight wrong. So I want to take a little bit of time to explain when I say it's a wicked system, it's because it engages in wicked activity against the nature of God. God hates imbalanced scales. He can't stand imbalanced scales. What does that mean? It means changing a deal and deceiving a party in that deal. He hates that. It's not honest. It's not above board. It's not in the light. It's not holy. It's not righteous. Okay? Well, that's what printing money is. Printing money is using imbalanced scales. It's manipulating the supply of something and altering the price of each unit. It's twisting. If you think about it in silver, this is how they used to do it. Okay? And again, if you know the history, then it becomes more clear. Because with paper money, we're kind of confused. We're like, well, what is the big deal? Just print more. And now it's digital, so we're like, I'm talking about the dollar now. So we're like, really, what's the big deal? It's just a few decimal places on a keyboard. What's the harm? But if you go back to the genesis of how this started, it is clearly bad. Okay, this is how money in like a debasement used to work. Okay, a new king would come in, and he'd say, you know what? Since I'm king now, I'm pharaoh now. What we're going to do is we're going to make new coins. And all the old coins that had the old pharaoh face on it, they're no longer good. You can't pay your taxes with that. You have to bring them in, and we'll give you a coin in exchange. One of our new coins with the new face printed on it. Okay? This is how it started. This is how money debasement started. So then people, under the threat of violence, not because they want to, but because they have to or else, they'd go to Pharaoh with their coins. They'd hand them their coin. Pharaoh would take a small amount of weight of gold off that old coin and give them a slightly smaller new coin. So you see, Pharaoh was stealing from the people. That's clearly wicked. I take 1 ounce, but I give you 0.8 ounces. That is a wicked thing. And of course, Pharaoh would use that money to build his new palace. Right? All the money he was taking right? He took in 1 million coins. He gave back 800,000 in terms of the weight, which means he's got 200,000 sitting around now of his own that he can spend. Not of his own, but that was stolen from the people. That's how money debasement started. But with precious metals, there was a check on that. People would get pretty, people would say, you know what? It doesn't feel right. Something's off here. So they had to be, there was a check in place. Again, not a lot you could do if you're the peon, peasant at the bottom of the totem pole saying, hey, my gold doesn't weigh the same. They're like, shut up, we'll kill you, so stop. I mean, it's not like you had a lot to do, but like revolts would happen because people would be like, hey, this is, you get enough people angry because they would see what was going on. Hey, this gold that you just gave me weighs less than what I brought you. What's going on? And so there was at least some pressure on the corrupt people at the top to limit the amount that they would debase the currency. They would just do it just a little bit on a bunch of units. And that little bit added up, of course. But again, do you see that there was some market, in a sense, there was some social check against bad behavior. Well, now people have been taught through government schools for decades in a system that is so, we're so disconnected from this knowledge. Most people actually don't see a problem with printing money. In fact, when the stimulus money is announced, hey, you're going to get $2,000, most people's reaction is, cool, $2,000. All right, send me $2,000, without even considering where that's coming from, how that's working. Okay, all that happened is Pharaoh took in your coin, did it all digitally so you didn't feel it in the same way, made each of your existing coins a little less valuable, and then gave you back some of the change, and he kept a bunch and gave it to his friends and paid for a whole bunch of other stuff and sent some overseas. Okay, it's the same deception that Pharaoh did. It's the same exact deception, but we don't feel it as much because it's all numbers on the screen now. It's a little easier to swallow. So yesterday I talked about Bitcoin being a rebellion against the wicked system, but I want you to know that's what I mean by wicked system. The dollar is not just this good thing and Bitcoin's a better thing. No, the dollar is a wicked system built on deception and fraud. And the Christian ought to be absolutely passionate about this because the deception hurts the poor in society the most. And we are called in Scripture dozens of times to stand up for the oppressed, for the widow, for the orphan, for the sojourner, for the poor, the needy, the person who can't defend themselves. We're supposed to defend that person's cause. And when you engage in this kind of fraudulent, crazy monetary policy, you are stealing from the poor to enrich the rich. That's what's happening. That's what happens when they do quantitative easing. They are literally stealing from the poor to enrich the rich. It's happening right in our face. They're smiling. They're asking us to congratulate them while they do it. It's great, we got that bill passed. It was awesome. Great work, team. It's like, what? The audacity. See, at least the highway robbery person, at least he has the honor to rob you to your face and not actually ask you to worship him and to congratulate him afterwards. At least he knows what he's doing is wrong. And there's at least a little bit of honor in that. You see, the politician actually has the audacity to have you thank him for stealing from you. No honor in that. Sorry, a little bit of a tangent. But all blocks are, again, our ledger, it's a way to ensure balanced scales, which pleases the Lord. It's a way to protect. Money is 1/2 of every single transaction. It's the lifeblood of an economy. When the moment the state gets a hold of the money, they get the power, which is why there's always, if you're going to have a successful regime takeover or dictatorship, right? If you're going to centralize power successfully, the first thing you have to do is control the money, is manage the money. If the people manage the money, you lose so much power. And so Bitcoin is a absolute rebellion against that wickedness. So I would claim you have a moral obligation to educate yourself about this kind of stuff. I'm not saying go and invest all your money in Bitcoin, although we're investing most of ours in Bitcoin. I'm just saying that there's actually a moral component to this, because just participating in the dollar system is wicked. Whether you know it or not, it is wicked. That the system itself is a wicked system. Okay, so we'll get a little bit further into this video, but I want you to see that the blocks, all they are, now they're visualizing it, but all it is a way across time to keep track of who has what. That's it. Really simple. Nothing too complicated. Let's finish out the video.
M takes reference from the previous one for the number of bitcoins each friend owns. This chain of records, or blocks, is called a ledger, and this ledger is shared among all the friends, which acts as a public distributed ledger. This forms the basis of blockchain. So, what happens when Phil has only one Bitcoin left, and he tries to send 2 more Bitcoins to Jack? The transaction will not go through. This is because all his friends have copies of the ledger, and it's clear that Phil has only 1 Bitcoin left. His friends will flag this transaction as invalid. A hacker will not be able to alter the data in the blockchain because each user has a copy of the ledger. The data within the blocks are encrypted by complex algorithms. All of this is made possible with the help of blockchain technology. Blockchain can be described as a collection of records linked with each other, strongly resistant to alteration, and protected using cryptography. Now, let's have a closer look at the Bitcoin transaction between Jack and...
So they kind of just breeze right over protected with cryptography. And this is where this video is not meant to be super technical, and I don't want to get that way either. I just want to put some things in perspective. Computers, like massive, computer can process like thousands of little mathematical equations a second, right? Like very, very fast computational ability. Now, now there's different kinds of systems when it comes to validating the block. Validating the block is how we reach consensus, how we all say, yes, this is what just happened. Bob sent 2 Bitcoin to Matt, or whatever, right? That's called validating the block. Now, the way Bitcoin works is called proof of work. This is different than some of the other ones like proof of stake. Proof of work is where you're and this is why Bitcoin gets criticized, because it uses a lot of energy, but not even close compared to what gold uses, like we saw yesterday, or the monetary system uses. So it's still like not a real criticism of Bitcoin, not even close. And of course, Bitcoin will get more efficient over time with layer 2 solutions. We can talk about that more later. But what Bitcoin, a miner is a computer. It's a guy sitting there, he's running a program on his computer, and his computer is just plugging and chugging a bunch of different long strings of characters into basically an equation, guessing and checking. Guess, 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 check, guess, check, guess, check, guess, check. And it's doing it thousands of times per second, however fast it can go, until it finds the right hash, the right key that unlocks that block and is able to validate it. And so this is it's said to be a random process because the computer doesn't know where to start. It just begins and randomly guesses. It runs the software, and then whoever wins that block, whoever's computer guesses the right one first, gets rewarded in new Bitcoin that's created. That, again, there's only 21 million Bitcoin that will ever be created, but I think right now only 18 million Bitcoin are circulating. That means there's 3 million Bitcoin that is available, that will be released through this validation process by the miners. Now, when that's over, it doesn't just stop, Bitcoin doesn't fall apart. Now the miners are rewarded transaction fees only. No more mining reward, it's just simple transaction fees. So my computer's still doing the same guessing. I'm trying to send a Bitcoin to Matt. The moment this third party, totally random person that doesn't even know the people doing the transaction, it's not like Visa who's managing everybody and knows all the players. This is just some computer that's connected to the network. When that computer solves the equation right, in the future, after all 21 million Bitcoin are circulating, the way they get rewarded is through the transaction fee. So that would be like when I'm sending Matt 1 Bitcoin, a very small amount of that is getting chopped off to power the network, right? So that's what that is. That's how it works. Some cryptocurrencies are inflationary, and it's sort of psychological. It tricks you psychologically because people like, if I send 1 EOS, for example, EOS is an altcoin that we invest in. We think it's kind of cool. There's some cool things about it. If I send 1 EOS to Matt, one of the psychologically nice things is he'll get 1 EOS. And it feels like that transaction was free. Like I didn't have to pay any EOS, and he didn't have to lose any EOS, 1 for 1. And that kind of feels good. However, EOS is inflationary, and that means every time we did that transaction, a new small amount of EOS forever will be created and added to the system. So Bitcoin's, you can see how it's a different animal, right? Some cryptocurrencies are actually just by default inflationary, and they kind of solve that they scratch that psychological itch by letting us feel like, I didn't lose any. I sent 5 and he got 5. But really, each of my 5 became a little less valuable because that's the nature of inflation. As supply goes up, each existing unit becomes a little less valuable, right? So you didn't actually gain in that system. You can see that, right? But there is something satisfying to keeping your 5. And anyway, so there are differences. But proof of work, again, looking at Bitcoin in particular, is the way, the system where the computer's just guessing and plugging and chugging these different long strings of numbers into this. And this is what the cryptography part means. I just want to pause here. If a person tried to guess this, it would take them 1,000,000 years and they'd never get close. We're talking just hundreds of billions of potential combinations. There's just no way a hacker is going to hack this. Now, you could say, well, what about supercomputers? Because aren't supercomputers able to process differently than linear computational devices that we have now? Can't they process all at once? And yes, theoretically, there could be a supercomputer that could start hacking Bitcoin transactions. We're so far away from that. We're probably 100+ years away from that. The best supercomputer out there right now isn't even close to the computational power necessary to successfully hack one of these. Okay, so, and then as we get closer, by the way, this is where Bitcoin can upgrade its protocols to adjust for market conditions. So if there's a supercomputer that's nearing the ability computationally to actually hack this process, well, Bitcoin's network, to protect itself, can push through an update that will increase the amount of blocks or characters or strings or whatever, basically just offset that risk. So it actually has, this is one of the beautiful things about Bitcoin, it has the ability to evolve to defend itself in the future against those attacks. Hopefully that makes sense. But I just wanted to take a moment and talk about what they mean by it's cryptographically safe. It's literally just a long string of digits that you're having to plug in, and when you get the right string, it unlocks that box, but guessing that or hacking that is impossible, statistically impossible.
You might want to make a point about how the evolving doesn't actually change the basis.
Exactly, and the evolving protocols never change things like the supply of the coin, right? So the fundamentals of the blockchain and the coin that's operating in it are fixed, which is nice, right? There are certain things about Bitcoin that will never change, which makes it desirable, like the supply of Bitcoin makes it desirable. Okay, do we have any more questions? I saw a few things coming in. So it looks like a lot of people are asking about Ripple, which is cool. We can talk about some alts. Is this video helping you? Does anybody want to finish this blockchain video? Would it help you? Because I have another question from Mrs. Colleen that I want to answer as well. I just got it on chat. But I'd like to hear from you guys. Is this helping you? Obviously, you can watch it on your own time too, but we'd love to watch it here with you as well. So I'll just wait to hear from you guys.
You could also talk about the big players making money?
Yeah, so one thing I want you to notice is we've been in this space now for 10 years almost. And I will tell you that what's happening like today in Bitcoin is not weird at all, okay? Not even close to weird. It is a consistent pattern. I've seen it for years, and I'll just share. So if you're worried and like, oh, is everything going to go down? Oh, let me just share a little bit about how the volatility in these spaces work. Now, I don't think volatility is a forever thing. Okay, let me say that. We still have a relatively small market cap. We just reached $1 trillion. Praise God, that's awesome. In terms of market cap for Bitcoin, so Bitcoin's a massive network. Okay. But it's still relatively small, which means there are individual players or small groups of players that can easily coordinate and make moves together in alignment. We're going to call them whales. That's what traders call these influential movers that are so big they sort of have an ability to affect the price, right? Especially on like one exchange, they can buy up so many sell positions or they can sell down so many buy positions that they actually can move the price down. You're talking about like $100 million gone, and it can actually move, selling $100 million of Bitcoin can lead, it gobbles up so many of those positions, it just eats it right down. Okay, so I've seen this for years and I want you to not be duped by it. I talked a little bit about last night, but I'll just repeat it here a little more aggressively. Don't be fooled. It's always the same pattern. The whales will start to sell. That'll lead to a decrease in the price. Then that day you'll turn on social media and you'll see like 9 negative stories about Bitcoin. Okay? It's not a coincidence. You'll see like 9 negative stories. We call it FUD. And it is absolutely nonsense. It's garbage. And I've seen it now so many times it doesn't work anymore for me. So, CNBC, Bitcoin, crypto CNBC will be talking about, oh, JP Morgan's against, says Bitcoin can't survive. Well, he's been saying that for years, but they waited to release that news story in alignment with several negative pieces of news because it's a concentrated, calculated effort to push the price down so that they can buy back in. And then these whales are making so much money on these 10% fluctuations of price. Like, it's crazy. Probably should be illegal, but I'm joking because the government shouldn't do anything. But it's crazy how much of. Now, why did I say that that's not a forever thing? Because as the network gets bigger and bigger, then one player's influence has less and less impact. They can't do as much. And of course, when Bitcoin becomes a money, which I believe it'll happen within the next few years, this will be a revolutionary change. Right now, Bitcoin, it's kind of a money like I'm buying property right now, and it would be nice if the buyer, I'm the buyer, if the seller wanted to exchange in Bitcoin, that'd be nice. And that has been happening. It's not unheard of. So large purchases, it actually makes sense. Wiring money through a bank, going through a title agency, all this stuff, it's clunky, it's costly, and it's annoying. Blockchain is super easy. Hey, I'll send you this, and we're done. Peer-to-peer, it's wonderful. So I do believe there needs to be some development on the user-friendly side of this, and this is going to get to Colleen's question, which glad you asked. She said, hey, I'm kind of convinced about Bitcoin, but what next? How do I start? So there's 2 ways. I'm going to talk about 2 of them. There's more, but I'm going to talk about 2 of them. There's kind of 2 ways you can buy Bitcoin, okay? One, I'm going to say, we're going to call it the exchange. One, we're going to call it the wallet. Okay, when you're talking about buying your Bitcoin in the beginning, you're going to use an exchange. But then where you store your Bitcoin, that's what I'm talking about when I say exchange or wallet. Now, the hardcore nerds are always going to criticize people who hold their Bitcoin on the exchange. They're going to say, no, you only keep it on the wallet because then it's actually yours. If you don't have, they'll say this over and over again, if you don't have your private keys, you don't have your Bitcoin, okay? I don't really agree with them. Now, they're not wrong on the technical analysis. if Coinbase goes down, we probably have bigger problems. Okay, so I'm more inclined to keep my cryptocurrency on an exchange, especially an exchange like Coinbase that's super backed. And in the beginning of Bitcoin, the reason a lot of those nerds say that is because this was years ago, but there was a massive fraud in the biggest Bitcoin exchange, and like hundreds of millions of dollars were lost. And there's nothing that anybody could have done about it. Okay, so this was like, it was hacked. There was a huge hack and a data breach, and everybody had their Bitcoin on the exchange, and a lot of people lost their Bitcoin. Okay, so that happened. I don't forget what year it was. We can look it up. 2012, 2011. I mean, it was early on, and it was like, it was a huge thing. And it scared a lot of early adopters to say, I'll never keep my Bitcoin on the exchange again. Since then, we're in a completely different world now. Coinbase is completely different. And that's just one. There's many exchanges, but it's completely different. Security protocols are so much more robust. And some of them are even insured, like FDIC insured. I think Coinbase is FDIC insured up to $500,000 or something, which means if they lost your Bitcoin up to $500,000, they're insured to pay you back. So it's just a different space now, okay? With that said, why would you keep it on the exchange? Well, I would say for convenience and so that you don't lose it. A lot of people that don't understand Bitcoin shouldn't have it on a wallet because then they're more likely that they can lose it. And things aren't super user friendly. It's getting better. It's getting a lot better. But I'd still say, like to you, Miss Colleen, I'd say, just like I do, by the way, I would just buy it off Coinbase and keep it on the exchange. And you can use the link on letstalklibertytoday.com, and it'll say buy Bitcoin. You can use that link, and when you purchase, it's very easy. From there, you'll just enter in either a debit card or your bank, like your ACH information, and you can buy Bitcoin. And when you purchase $100 of Bitcoin, you get $10 of Bitcoin, and we do if you use that link. And that's the way I would do it if I were you for now, as you're getting comfortable with it, and then you can kind of venture out and explore from there. Our mindset on where we're at in Bitcoin's life cycle, it's still a baby. We have not even touched mass adoption, not even close. The nerds are in, the investors are starting to get in, barely getting in. Have a guy like Elon Musk, and Tesla put 1.5 billion into Bitcoin. MicroStrategy, 150 million multiple times, or whatever it is, right? There's these big investors that are starting to put some of their company reserves, like their balance sheet that they used to just hold dollars, cash reserves, they're starting to convert that to Bitcoin. If even like half of the Fortune 500 company list put like 1% of their cash reserves into Bitcoin, we'd probably see $100,000 Bitcoin just from that alone. Okay, so the trend is going to continue, but we're still in the very early stage of investor adoption. It's very early on. There's only a few people like Elon Musk. He's a trendsetter. He's out there in the forefront, and we're so glad that he's doing it because he's creating a lot of buzz. It's hard to be the first person in, but when the cool people start doing it or whatever, the trendsetters, especially when they're technologically savvy and people respect them, more people follow. And so we're just getting started on the investor side. And then after that, then you have what I would call like mass adoption. You reach critical mass, the snowball's big enough, and it breaks open as an actual money. Money status means you can pretty much be sure that if you want to buy something, the person on the other end will accept Bitcoin. That's what I mean by money. It's pretty much sure that the person on the other end of the transaction will accept your Bitcoin. Okay, and so we're not even close to that. I say we might be close to it, but we're not very close to that point yet. And that's the point where Bitcoin takes off and goes to like, several $1 million per Bitcoin, right? And of course, you don't have to own a Bitcoin. You can own like 0.00001 of a Bitcoin. It can be divided down to its lowest denominator, which is called a Satoshi. And I forget what it is, point several zeros and a one. But I hope that helps Mrs. Lalone, is I'd go to letstalklibertytoday.com. There's a buy Bitcoin now button, and then it's just as easy as entering your debit card, and you can start. And then in terms of an investment strategy, I would just put small amounts over time, or whatever you're comfortable with, and ask the Holy Spirit, whatever the Lord leads you to do over time. And I wouldn't try to play the market. I think it's a mistake to play the market. It'll stress you out. You're not meant to be watching charts all day, watching prices all day. It is not a fun life. If you get caught in that, which a lot of people did that in 2017, myself included, so I'm speaking from experience here, it's not a good life. And now if you're called to be like a day trader or something, I doubt anybody's called to do that, by the way, but if you really think you are, okay, you're an exception. But for the rest of us, don't look at it like the speculative thing, like I'm gonna buy low and sell high. Stop. Just continually buy it over time. You'll do really well, and you won't stress yourself out, and you won't, lose a lot of sleep over it.
Probably time for one more question, but Drake asks, which other cryptos have fixed supply?
Okay, I'm not getting any of those comments for some reason.
We should just put it on the screen next time.
No worries. Drake asks, which other cryptos have fixed supply? So here's a resource that I use to do a lot of my crypto research. It's called coinmarketcap.com. Coinmarketcap.com it will immediately rank based on market cap all the coins. So you can see your top 10 list, your top 20 list, your top 50 list, your top 100, you can drill down as far as you want to go. And every time you click on a coin, it not only shows you the charts, but it also links to their website, their white paper, their value proposition, and it says things like circulating supply, max supply, which is pretty cool. So off the top of my head, there's not a lot of them that come to mind that are fixed supply. There are others, Bitcoin Cash, right? Bitcoin Cash, if Bitcoin is again, the blockchain is a shared ledger. Well, sometimes the network operators disagree about the upcoming protocol update. Some of them say, hey, we want it to be faster. Some of them say, hey, we want it to be more secure or whatever. There's a what's called a fork. And a hard fork is when two different, that ledger at that moment copy and paste and becomes two different separate blockchains. Okay, and now they operate independently of each other. Well, when they do that, they have to name one of the coins something different. So that's like where Bitcoin Cash came from. There's like 20 different Bitcoin forks now out there. And now Bitcoin has remained the most popular one, of course. And what happens, by the way, when that fork happens, if you own Bitcoin and there's a fork, well, now you own Bitcoin Cash too. Because you were still just a line item on that ledger, Lucas 10 Bitcoin. Well, now it's Lucas 10 Bitcoin and Lucas 10 Bitcoin Cash. That's how that works. So forks I kind of think that they're an unfortunate reality because to new people coming into the space, it confuses everything and it seems like, what's even going on? We can just make infinite Bitcoins. And I'm more of like a Bitcoin maximalist. I think Bitcoin does a lot better when everyone agrees that, hey, for better or worse, we're going to sort of stick to this one. And there's kind of safety in numbers idea. So I kind of tend towards that because of the economics of it. But it's a great question, Drake. I don't have a really good answer for you besides CoinMarketCap is really cool, but you'll see that a lot of coins are inflationary or they have some predetermined way that they create new units. And it's usually straightforward, but again, what's nice about it is it's written in the code. So it's not just like some people making a decision. It is what it is. And then take it or leave it, that sort of thing. But yeah, CoinMarketCap, great resource. We use that all the time. Did I answer? Oh, can you go back to main content and then go to the next slide? I want to talk about two things real fast. I know we're over time. Okay, so a blockchain is a shared immutable. Immutable means no one can change it, right? It's just a shared ledger. It's transparent. And when that block gets pushed out, no one can go and edit it. That thing is just set in stone, right? Cyberstone, if you want to think about it like that. That's what immutable means, unchanging. That facilitates the process of recording transactions and tracking assets in a business network. An asset can be tangible, a house, car, cash, land, or intangible, intellectual property, patents, copyrights, branding, all of which are not actual property. Virtually anything of value can be tracked and traded on a blockchain network, reducing risk and cutting costs for all involved. Why reducing risk? Go to the next slide for me. Because blockchains are trustless. You'll hear this word a lot. I want you to know what it means compared to Visa. Visa, one of the problems with it is when you use Visa, whether you realize it or not, you are trusting a group of people to do the right thing. And that kind of system has flaws. There is a potential for abuse. Okay, it's a trust-based system. There's managers of the system that they might have strong incentives to be honest and do everything right, but they have the ability to abuse their authority. Okay? Well, blockchains, decentralized systems, are trustless. Means that participants involved do not need to know or trust each other or a third party for the system to function. This is a really beautiful thing about these decentralized systems. And it makes it to where it's not just a fad, blockchain here today, gone tomorrow. No, this is unequivocally better than the trust-based systems. This is better by orders of magnitude than what we currently have. That's why this new technology is going to completely devour the old technology, because there's actual advantages to the decentralized system, the blockchain system. And trustless system is one of those advantages. There's more. I'm going to just kind of sprinkle in some as we go through this week, but that's a big one. And hopefully I explained that well to where it makes sense. Lord knows I need help. So that would be supernatural grace. If your ears understood what my mouth was saying, that's a miracle from heaven. So anyway, we're out of time tonight. If you have questions, and tomorrow we're going to dig more into and I know I told you about, I gave you my word tonight we would look at some investment strategies. I'll sprinkle in a quick one because I know I gave you my word. What we typically do, one way to invest in blockchain, I will call it the shotgun approach. Okay, and there's different ways you can do this. You can go to CoinMarketCap. You can look at the top 30 coins and put $500 in each one of those coins. For example, put a set amount, $50. Because here's the thing, the blockchain space has so much explosive growth. You could lose, let's say you did that for 30 of the top, and I'm saying the top market cap coins because they're already market tested and they already have a really good track record of success. To make it to the top 30 market cap coins, there's thousands of coins. Okay, so these are like they've already been vetted by the market. Okay, so they're not like high risk. These are the low risk side of the industry. But some of those are so disruptive, think of something like Aave or Uni or these decentralized finance coins. They're so disruptive that if one of them becomes the standard, it's going to have times 1,000,000 markup. Okay, it's going to go absolutely through the roof. The market cap's currently at 300 million. It's going to go to trillions. And your share is going to experience thousands of percent markup. Okay, so that's the reality with a lot of these smaller altcoins. So you don't have to do all this research and figure all of them out. You can actually engage in just throwing your seed out, because even if you did that with 30 coins, even if 29 of them you lose your investment, if the one does what is possible, it will more than make up for the 29 losses. That's the kind of explosive growth. And again, you can read stories about this. If you had $100 in Bitcoin in 2009, right now you have like hundreds of billions of dollars or something. It's absurd the amount of growth that's possible in a short amount of time with these technologies. Okay, so we're not big gamblers. I'm not a big gambler. For me, this is more of, I see a space. Again, if I was living in 1995, okay, and I saw the internet starting to radically change the world, it wouldn't have been a dumb move to have been like, what are the top 30 internet companies? I'm just going to put like $5,000 in each of them. And then you experience the 99 bubble, and then you lose some, you lose 10 of them. You're like, oh, that kind of sucked. But then the ones that remain become internet giants and absolutely wreck the world in a good way. You did really, really well, is my point. Even if you didn't have insider information as to, you can just look at the leaders. Now, the other shotgun approach, I'll just end with this, is if you know that there's a subsector of cryptocurrencies that you think is really attractive, like decentralized finance. Let's say decentralized finance is amazing. We'll probably do a segment on it this week where we just take some time and look at just that application because it's so disruptive. It's going to completely change banking and the banking system as we know it. It's wonderful. So let's say you just say, oh, I see that. I see that value proposition. I see the problem it solves. I see how it's a check against wickedness. I can morally get behind this revolution. And I just want to kind of shotgun approach invest in DeFi coins. Well, you can do that. There's only like 20 main players in DeFi. There might be more, but if you did the top 20 DeFi players, one of them is going to absolutely explode. And so I would suggest if you're investing in blockchain, don't just invest in Bitcoin and Ethereum. Now, if you're just getting started, start there. That's fine. Do what you're comfortable with, start there. But the real explosive growth is going to be in some of these smaller projects that have huge implications. Anyway, I wanted to end you with a little bit of investment advice. That's how we've done it, and it's like I've had coins over the last 3 months where my $400 investment turned into $6,000, and I have several of them do that. So I'm just doing little seeds here and there, and again, some of them lose, and I'm not selling. I just wait. It's $400, not a huge risk. Okay, you threw $400 in, just watch, and then they turn into some of them are again over $6,000 now in just 3 months. Okay, talk about ROI. That's crazy. And anyway, like my Binance coin, that's been the last 3 months of my Binance coin, just for example, to take one and pick on one. And we've had about 8, I think, that have done that. So you don't need a lot. You just need a few of them. We'll wrap it up for tonight. Tomorrow we'll look at altcoins. So if you have questions about particular coins that you want answered, send them my way, and I'd love to do a little commentary on them. If I don't know, I'll just tell you, hey, I don't know. And maybe I'll look it up for you and do the research, or maybe I'll just be lazy and say, I don't know. But anyway, thank you for joining us. Join us again tomorrow, 9 p.m. Central Time, and we will talk liberty then. For now, let's listen to the government can.
Everybody, gather round. I'm here to give you anything you like. You want free college, energy, mortgages, whatever you like. You have come to the right place. Why? I'll tell you why. Who can take your money?
Who can take your money?
With a twinkle in their eye.
A twinkle in their eye.
Take it all away and give it to some other guy. The government.
The government.
The government can.
The government can.
And who can tax the sunrise?
Who can tax the sunrise?
Who can tax the trees?
Who can tax the trees?
Let you run a business and collect up all the fees. The government.
The government.
Oh, the government can.
The government can.
And the government can, 'cause they mix it up with lies and make it all taste good.
Make it all taste good.
The government takes everything we make to pay for all of their solutions. Healthcare, climate change, pollution. Throw away the Constitution. And who can give a bailout?
Who can give a bailout?
Tell us to behave.
Tell us to behave.
And make the founding fathers roll over in their grave. The government.
The government.
Oh, the government can.
The government can.
And the government can, 'cause they mix it up with lies and make it all taste good.
Make it all taste good.
The government takes everything we make. They're power hungry and malicious. Their economics are fictitious. Soon we'll have to eat our dishes.